Welcome back to my studio. This is Colleen with Designs of Value Art, and today we're going to talk about the tools of the trade in watercolors. Now there's many different things that you can try and practice with and see what works best for you in the watercolor world. I'm going to just show you some of the things that I use and enjoy and use on a daily basis. For example, first thing I use on a daily basis is my glove. I like wearing a glove when I paint because you do not want to get your oils from your hands, no matter how clean they are, there's still oils in them, onto your watercolor paper, because at times then it will not accept watercolor paint if it has oil on it. So I do like to use the gloves. That's something that I find is very important. Since I've had eye issues in the past, I do use a magnifying glass for some of the fine detail. Let's talk brushes real quick. Got a couple new ones here that I'm going to be trying out. Probably not going to pronounce this. It's Da Vinci size 4 and size 6. I just picked these up, had them delivered from Dick Blick, and I'm going to try these, see how I like them. I've never tried them before. The ones I normally use are Billy Shoals. The reason I like Billy Shoals, for example, this one is a 2. It has that nice pointed tip. Move that so you can see it a little bit better. And it has a longer bristle. Now there is a less expensive alternative that you can try, and this one is available Dick Blick, Jerry's Artorama, eBay, wherever, but this is a Princeton Velvet Touch long round, and it has the long bristles and that nice point as well. To me, that's very important to get the details in correctly, get into the nooks and crannies of that leaf or petal or whatever it is that you may be painting. Now this is a little tool, I think I picked it up right on Amazon, that works pretty slick. Here, I've got one all set up. We can just swap it out. And it holds my brushes. You know, we always have our tables at a tilt, and I can set up my palette so it's flat, but with my brushes, they forever roll down the table and land on the floor. And since I'm on a high stool, I can't reach them very easily. So I picked these up because they do hold my brushes. And the other nice thing that this does is I'm not putting it up like this to dry. Because if you put it up like this to dry, what happens is all the moisture goes right into that ferrule and then eventually into the wood handle. So by letting it sit like that and letting it dry overnight, it's drying the way you want the tip to be. It's out of the way from other brushes. So it's really got some nice advantages to it. And I just have 4 of these sitting here as I paint, and I move them in and out. That's one style of brush. Let's go on to another style of brush here. And this is what I use. I was always told that it was a filbert, but everybody's got a different name for it. What is the name on this one? This one's also a Princeton Select Filbert Grenier. And what it does is it allows you, I'll put it right up against the paper here so you can see it, to just use those little thin bristles that are up on top. They cut out some of them. It's filbert because it's rounded on the edge, so it's not a flat. But this works really good for dry brushing in watercolors. There's a lot of different uses you can have for that. You can do grass with it, all kinds of different things. So it's got some nice ideas. Now this is a product or tool that I started using when I was in oils, painting in oils. Because in oils, I could just lay it down if I wanted to remove something that I put in and didn't care for it, or I had put down too much paint. This would actually just scoop it right out. What I use this for now in the watercolor world is applying masking fluid. Now this is a new masking fluid that I just got in. It's a whole bean watercolor masking fluid. So I'm going to try that one, see how I like it. It's just a soft blue color. So that's an option. And then the other one that I have been using for quite some time is the drawing gum by Peebo. This one gets a little sticky and is a little bit more difficult to deal with. It always feels tacky, even though it might be dry. So I wanted to try a new one. And you can get these in many, many different sizes. All right, and then this is another one that I use for masking fluid. It's just a little white, I mean, they come in all different sizes. You can get flats, but this works really good if you're doing, oh, say a water drop, and you wanted to get that in there, and just some little dots, or you're painting a portrait and you want to get the eyes highlights in there just right. So this works really well for that. So that's the one I use to do the masking fluid with that. And then you always want to have a pen and a pencil. I have just a normal everyday pencil here, and this is a micro line. I don't normally sign my name with these. I usually paint my name with a liner brush, but this does come in handy for other different things. For example, when you're writing your color maps and you're writing down what you're doing, like this one is rose madder, and then you just use less water here and less water here, but then you've got a pen that you can write that in with that's nice and dark and you can see it. So that's something you always want to have. And then erasers. Let's talk erasers for a moment. We do have the Faber-Castell dust free, and then the kneaded eraser comes in many different colors these days, but you can put this right on your paper after you put your design on it, and if you need to, you can just roll it right onto your paper just like this and take off some of that design so it's not quite so dark. And then this is an eraser as well. It's just a little pen eraser. Get these right on Dick Blick as well, I think. But they work really nice. They give you a bunch of refills and just make it go up just like a pen. It works out really well for little tiny spots. Now, let's say that you're painting with the watercolors and you have overworked an area and the paper feels rough there. You can take your smooth stone. It's just a stone that I picked up at Walmart in the floral area. They sell them by the bag. People put them in the bottom of their vases sometimes and put their florals in them. But you can take this stone if you have a rough area on your watercolor paper that you want to have smooth so you can add more paint to it. Take your smooth stone and just go back and forth gently. You don't have to go real harshly. This will work, and it'll smooth out your paper, and you can go ahead and paint on it again. I always leave these in the same spot so I know right where they are. And then paper towel. I always like a nice heavy paper towel to be handy. And then I have just old paintings that I didn't finish or didn't care for or whatever, and I cut them into strips, and I can choose my colors and put them on and compare it to my resource material to make sure that it matches the color I'm looking for. So that's a nice option to have. And then different things that you can store mixed paint in, such as a dark green color for your leaves or a gray color for your shadows. I like the idea of the cap, keeps them nice and clean. Or you can use these just for your water. I have a taller one for my water that I use. And of course, along with the water, I have to have my Winsor & Newton blending and glazing medium. This allows me to play with my watercolors longer. They don't dry out quite as quickly, so that's an important piece to have, and I add it right to my clean water. And then this is a new one too that I've just acquired and really enjoy. It's just a little item that picks up your water and you can add it right to your paint on your palette, that type of thing. And then of course you have your colors. Now I normally use Watercolor paints that have honey in them. It makes them lay down smoother, and I really enjoy these paints. These have been my favorite. I do use, however, Winsor & Newton. It's a great paint as well. I have some Daniel Smith. Now with Daniel Smith, you want to test it first because it can be a product that will actually have grains in it, so it'll leave more of a grainy effect in your watercolors, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. So just keep that in mind with Daniel Smith. That may be something that is going on with their paint. And then I have my little water dropper. I can just pick up my water and put it in the palette where I want it. This is a little tiny square of magic eraser. Actually, I just buy the cheap ones at Walmart so I don't have to pay the big price. But you can get this wet, and it's another perfect tool. You got a spot on your watercolor paper, you drip some color on there by mistake. This is moist. You can just pick this up just like that, and it erases it just like the magic eraser does with the dirt. So it works out phenomenally. And then you have your watercolor wheel, which is really important. If you're picking and choosing your own colors, this is a phenomenal item to have. This one is actually made specifically for watercolors. I just love that. And then the Lazy Susan that I have, my watercolor paper sitting on. I normally use blocks when I paint. I use 140-pound cold press blocks, and this will actually just move it slightly or a lot, whatever you want it to do, to where you need to have that design moved. And then I have my grayscale and value finder. Now this is invaluable because if I'm painting a tulip and one petal on the left hand side and the right hand side, they're very similar in color, but I'm not quite sure what value, I can take this. All right, so that kind of matches, I would say probably to my value 5. So I know how much water to add to it, how much paint I need in my puddle, etc. So these are really invaluable tool to have. And then if you've laid down your masking fluid and once it's dry you want to remove it, this is just a cement, they call it a cement eraser or a cement square, and you can just pick it up. That masking fluid will come right up with this. Some people just use your hands. It can actually hurt your hands after a while, so I try to stay away from that. When you're applying the masking fluid, you want to cover your brush with pink soap or some kind of soap so that the bristles don't stick when the masking fluid, if it would dry in your brush, for example, you would want to have this in there, and then that's going to come out of your bristles a lot easier. The other thing that you want to have is a bucket. I like this one. It has 3 different areas. It also has a very nice holder for my brushes so that they dry flat just like those other items that I have. But I'll have all 3 filled with water. I'll use one to clean my brush in. Once I use it in here to clean it and see it's got the markings on the bottom, then I'll take it to the middle one and clean it again. And then my last one is if I need to add water without the blending and glazing medium in it for some reason, this would be the one that I would use because I would keep that as clean as possible. So that works out really well. And then, of course, we want to have, and I have many different ones, palettes. I do not recommend, see I have eraser underneath it to keep it flat on my table here, so that when I put water in here it doesn't run down and mix my paints, they don't mix all together. I have many different ceramic ones. I have square ones, I have round ones, all different kinds. I just love palettes. I'm addicted, unfortunately. But I don't recommend the plastic, because when you put your water on the plastic, it beads up. And then you add your paint and you can't quite tell what the color is that you have on your palette. Where this one, that doesn't happen, or any ceramic one, it does not happen. So you can mix your paints in here and be assured that you're getting the color that you're really looking for. And then I have one more item I want to show you here. And that is the Dr. P.H. Martin's, and this is Bleed Proof White. Now I'm going to be painting a rose in a blue jar, glass jar, and all you're going to do is see about this amount of the jar, but it's got some really nice white highlights on there. So I'm going to just use this as with the highlights. And I think it's going to turn out much more lovely than if I were just using a masking fluid, which doesn't give you the highlights that you really, really want. Or at least I'm not able to get them that way. So that I'm going to try this, and I'll film it and you'll be able to see me do that. It's a really beautiful blue vase that it's sitting in. Okay, so those are some of the tools of the trade for watercolors. I hope that helped. Please go to my Patreon website if you want to see any of my classes in full. I have some of my classes on YouTube that are just 5-6 minutes of the classes, and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing in my classes. But if you want a step-by-step, stroke-by-stroke example of painting roses, tulips, all of the above, many, many different types of flowers in there, go to my Patreon site at patreon.com/Colleen D. Aiken or Designs of Value Art. Well, I'll be talking to you soon. We're going to be doing some more YouTube videos, but please check me out and have a lovely day.